Yeah, ready.
Welcome to today's press conference. Thank you so much for attending. We're going to start off with an opening statement from Coach, and then we'll go into questions. Same old way we always do it. Please use the raise hand function on the side. Coach?
Okay, thank you. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Yeah, really excited about this class, 19 incredible student athletes. And great thing about these guys are, they committed prior to me, or most of them committed prior to being the head coach. And then when there was no head coach, they stayed with it. And then after I became the head coach, luckily they stayed with their commitment. So I'm very excited about these guys, both on the offensive side of the ball, defense, and some specialists. So yeah, any questions you guys have, I'm ready to answer them.
Thank you so much, Coach. You may use the raise hand feature if you have a question for Coach. Harold, you're up first.
Hi, Coach. Can you kind of take us through what these last, 2 weeks have been for you? I mean, you get named the head coach less than 2 weeks before signing day. Just what was that whole process like for you?
Yeah, it's been busy to say the least. After meeting with the team, I met with each individual. I got through the entire team, and that was great. That gave me a lot of energy, just how extraordinary these student athletes are. And then also, tying up this recruiting class and getting to know those guys, and then putting together a coaching staff as well, as along with meeting a lot of different people. So it's definitely been busy, but it's been fun.
Well, Harold, you can follow up.
Okay. Just what stands out to you at first glance about this class?
Well, I think they're all extraordinary players and students, and very committed to Stanford University. Like I said, we got some really good wide receivers, some really good offensive linemen, a quarterback, a running back. So I feel great about the offensive side of the ball, and then defensively, we got 3 guys in the secondary, 4 edge guys, an inside linebacker, and a specialist. So I think it's pretty well rounded in terms of the positions that we signed, and we think they're all really good players and great people, and excited to bring them on board to our Stanford family.
Thank you, Harold. Dave?
Yeah, hi, Coach. Just wondering if there's any surprises, or if there's any is this as good as you could have hoped, going in when you took the job 2 weeks ago? What did you expect might happen over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I wasn't sure, to be honest with you. I mean, I was hoping that the whole class wouldn't decommit as a group and go elsewhere. So that's the worst scenario, obviously, but that didn't happen. So I was, pleasantly surprised that they had hung with the commitment in spite of there being a period of time where there was no head coach. And so, and then after coming aboard and getting to talk and to these guys and their families, how committed they were, and I guess how much they connected with my vision and kind of direction for the program and my philosophy. I was pleasantly surprised that they connected with it, and they really wanted to be a part of it. So that was good.
John?
Coach, you've recruited a lot of places, obviously, at Eastern Washington and Utah and at Sacramento State. Stanford, I know, is different, but my question is more: what is recruiting in late 2022 like, trying to close as opposed to 2017 or 2015? Just how different is the landscape for you? Just coach trying to sign up player.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I think the funny thing is it changes. It seems like each year, so you gotta be agile and be able to adjust. The things that I think that stay the same are Stanford University and what we stand for and what we offer as an institution, and then putting together what we hope to be one of the greatest football programs in the country. So we're really about maintaining our academic prowess and reputation, and our connection with those student athletes that want to get a great education and play. So that has remained the same. There's certainly some adaptations you got to make in this environment that have been going on, the last 2 or 3 years, really. So I think it's changing, but in a lot of respects, it's still about, the human connection, getting to know people. It's important they trust you and they connect with your vision, and that you're authentic, I think, is the best way to be. So I think there's still a lot of things that are the best way to recruit, and that's be authentic and care about them and get to know them. Obviously, that's more challenging when you've just been on the job for, a week. It's hard to establish those things in a short amount of time, but all you can do is be yourself and reach out and try and make a connection.
Ben?
Yeah, hey, Coach. I know you guys had, official visitors over the weekend, with guys that signed today. Just talk about how valuable was that kind of process for you guys and helping to kind of get to know these kids that you signed today.
Yeah, it was very valuable. So, most of them, I'd say 90 to 95% of them had already been on campus at least one time. So, all the information about the university and those type of things, they had already, really been a part of. So it was really about them kind of getting to know me and the coaches that, are on staff currently. And then the other really good part is this staff has become, through, text chains, they've become pretty good friends, because a lot of them have been committed for a while. So they've been able to communicate. So it was great for them to get together. It was a little bit of a reunion for them to see each other and then get to know me. And, our staff was pretty small at the time, but get to know them and then get reacquainted with Stanford also.
Thank you. Dave?
Yeah, Coach, you kind of touched on this already, but what was your main point of emphasis when you wanted to meet with each individual commit, even after you were named coach and even maybe before this past weekend?
Yeah, I think, Dave, it's, about one is connecting. I think people, when you have a transition at the top and they've committed to somebody, prior, David Shaw was an unbelievable person and coach. And then they want to know kind of what I'm all about. And the best way to do that is, Zoom is fine, but in person, where you get to see somebody eye to eye and you can feel their authenticity and what they're all about. And so it was really just kind of getting to know them. And then me explaining again my vision of, what we're going to do here, what are the things that I believe in, how we're going to treat our players, all of those things, and for them to get a feel and just be comfortable with, at the end of the day, they're entrusting me with their son. So it's important they feel like they're going to be well taken care of and cared for, and that's the most important part for most parents.
Thank you. We'll go to Harold.
Hi, Coach. Is it fair to say that kind of recruiting is more important at a school like Stanford, where you can't just grab you can't just reload out of the transfer portal, I guess?
Yeah, I think it is. I think for Stanford, obviously the advantages with the student athletes across the country that want to have a high level of academics and football, you got to find them early. Obviously, they're highly recruited student athletes. You got to develop the relationship. And then I think getting them on campus is vital, because once you get them on campus, they see how special this place is. So those things are really hard to rush. The good thing is these young men, 19 of them, had developed a comfort level with Stanford. And then it was just more about them being comfortable with me and my vision. But I do agree with you. I think Stanford is not a transactional relationship for these players. It's not a 4-year decision. It's a 40-year decision or a lifetime decision where they know it's going to impact their life for a very long time. And so those things take time to cultivate. Luckily, they felt secure enough about Stanford, which totally speaks to the university institution and the reputation that they were to stick with it in spite of, a little bit of unknowing where it was going.
John?
Coach, you mentioned that you have a short amount of time to get to know the existing roster. With respect to these young men that you've signed, sort of adapting them, or visualizing how you will adapt to their talents. Is that a process that you will work to kind of formulate in your mind, or do you have a good idea now based on kind of what you've seen?
No, that's a great question. It's it's one of those things that I think good coaching is you adapt to whatever you have. So I think that it helped that I coached high school football for a long time, is you get what you get, and you're not recruiting guys. So whoever shows up, you got to adapt your system around your talent. And so that's something that happens on a day-to-day basis. I think you really get to know your team when you get them out on the field and you're able to coach them up, see how they react, see how they're able to do things with your eyes, as opposed to on video. So you learn so much about just being around your team and coaching them. And then our job as coaches is to adapt and make sure we're highlighting the things that they do really well, and then minimize the things maybe that they're not strong in. But these guys that are here at Stanford, we got tremendous players, and the class we're bringing in, very bright young men and talented, and they're very hungry to be great as both students and athletes. So I can't wait to coach them. That's when we'll really be able to kind of adapt and adjust.
Thank you, Ben.
If you could just talk more on some of the offensive pieces you guys signed: Amari Borden, Miles Jackson, Cedric Irvin,
Sure.
other guys as well. But just how you feel, Tiger Bachmeyer, how you feel some of those skill position guys will work well with your system, and how excited you are to add those guys into the mix?
Yeah. No, yeah. You're talking about on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah. Just the
Yeah,
offensive guys, how you see them fitting in. Yeah.
Yeah, Miles Jackson from Millikan High School, he's a guy I love quarterbacks that have been highly productive in terms of throwing a lot of passes and lots of yards and touchdowns, just because they've done it before. And they've got that data in their head that they've seen it before, and anticipation, all the things that go into playing quarterback. So, he's completed almost 70% of his passes, and for 47 touchdowns and almost 3,700 yards. So I love the fact that, he has that experience of throwing the ball, where really the game is in his hands. It's not a system there that, he's handing the ball off primarily. The game's going through him. And if he doesn't play well, then they weren't going to win. And that's the way it'll be in our system too. If our quarterback doesn't play well, it's going to be very difficult for us to win the game. Cedric Irvin, a state champion from Christopher Columbus High School. He's outstanding student athlete, highly productive, almost 2,800 yards, 39 touchdowns, and he's very versatile. He's a guy that can catch the ball, obviously a great runner, and I think he has a chance to be really good in protection. They don't ask high school backs to pass protect a lot. Usually they're just kind of getting the ball, but I think he could be a really good pass protector. And then, you talked about the wide receivers, Tiger Bachmeyer, one of the top pole vaulters in the state of California. I think he led the state in receiving yards per game. Great body control, great hands. I think he's going to be really good in this system. Our system's really about, finding space and creating space. He has a really good feel for doing those things. Amari Borden from Florida, really long receiver, 6'3", basketball player. Again, highly productive, great with the ball in his hands. And I like having different sizes and shapes and of wide receivers that have different skills. And so those guys are a little bit different, but they're very talented. There's Mel Cece, kid, another state champion out of Cherry Creek High School in Denver. Strong hands, plays really physical, run through tackles, good after he catches the ball. A really, really special guy. And then Jackson Harris is another player that from Berkeley that, he was a guy that only started playing football during the COVID year. And so he was a soccer player, and then he ends up catching 73 balls, 1,500 yards and 24 receiving yards. And then a kid out of Austin, Texas, Tyler Coe, another big kid, 6'3", really good player. So you put all those guys in, I mean, that's a really good group. They're all a little bit different, which I like. But we're going to, we'll play like 8 wide receivers. So it's important that those guys can rotate, and we have enough really good ones that can be productive. And, it all starts, as you guys know, up front. Outstanding offensive linemen, Luke Baklenko and Simi Pale from Elk Grove, Charlie Simons, Alan Thomason, and Zach Yamamuchi from Las Vegas, Nevada, and Bishop Gorman. I think I butchered the name there, but these guys are all really, really strong student athletes and big physical guys that I think are going to be able to not only pass protect, but come off the ball and play in a fast tempo offense, because we're going to do that about 20% of the time. But these guys are all really special players, and I'm excited to work with all of them.
Thank you, John.
Coach, again, in this cycle, you're kind of the ninth inning closer. With respect to some other classes, you're the seventh inning guy or starting pitching for the freshmen and sophomores, and to use a bad baseball analogy. But what can you share with us? You know, at recruiting at Stanford, there's the academic piece of it that must be evaluated, and all coaches like character. But in terms of athletically and football skill wise, what kind of recruiter are you, without asking you to share your special secrets, but multi-sports, winning team? I mean, is there something in those facts that kind of you weigh more than others, kind of that identifies Tri-Taylor as a recruiter for skills on the field?
Yeah, I think, we're looking for guys that are the right fit in our program. So the specific things that I'm looking for in a quarterback, sometimes, they can be a drop back guy that isn't necessarily a runner, or they can be a dual threat quarterback. We've been able to win with both of them. And so being able to utilize those guys and adapt the system, I feel good about either of those type of guys. And then each position really on the field is different. I think what good coaches do is they take and utilize a skill set that somebody has and see how they would fit into our system. So we're really kind of we're open to really anything. Obviously, there has to be an ante of size and speed and ability and all those things, but there's all kind of different ways to do it. And some of them are highly recruited that you find, and some of them nobody's recruiting. I think you got to just really trust your evaluation of what you're looking for in student athletes, and then believe in it. We're not going to be a group that just goes after 5 stars or 4 stars. Don't really pay attention to that. Really just trust the evaluation and be really thorough in your recruiting. How much does this guy love football? Or does he love recruiting more than football? So we want guys that are great students, but love football and love competing. Those are things you're really going to have to dig into. And those are things that it takes time. You gotta find out about these guys and that they're a good fit. That doesn't mean they won't be a good player, even a great player somewhere else, but it's got to be the fit here. And then in terms of the recruitment, I'm just going to be sincere and be myself. The best advice you're going to ever get is just be yourself, and hopefully people connect with that. I think they certainly connect with somebody that's more authentic and sincere. So I just right off the bat, you try to be honest and straightforward, transparent, all those things. Explain, what you're doing, how you're doing it, and then if they're drawn to it, then it's probably a good fit. If they're not, then it probably wasn't going to be a great fit regardless. So just try to be ourselves, and then work tirelessly at finding the best players all over the country, and then working to build those relationships so that when it comes to the end, they know they can count on you and that you're giving them, accurate, vital information.
Thank you, John. Dave?
Yeah, Coach, kind of a two-part question. I guess, first of all, I was just curious if the players that have entered the transfer portal, the Stanford players that have entered, I know most of those are grad transfers. Yeah. Is that something that is your recruiting extend to trying to bring players back? Or the other part of it is just now essentially you have your roster for next year. And I guess, what does that feel like to kind of know now what you have to work with, and maybe how you can formulate your scheme and everything for next season?
Yeah. So in regards to the players that entered the transfer portal, they were all invited back. I wanted them all. They're a part of the Stanford football program. Whether or not they were great players or good players or never played, we wanted them all back. When you get to the end of your career, and I remember when I was a student athlete and I was, after my senior year, sometimes you're just ready for something else. And this is a unique situation because, with the COVID year, everybody got an extra year. So some of these guys have been around for a while. They have their degree and they're ready to try something else. They don't have necessarily anything against Stanford or even the direction that we're headed. They just want to try something different. So I respect that, and I understand. I certainly don't want to lose them, but that's going to happen when you've naturally been at a place for a while. We will coach up the guys that are here and want to be here. I think Stanford's a place that I don't anticipate having much turnover with the transfer portal in the coming years for a couple of different reasons. One is, they don't want to leave without their degree. They work so hard to get here, and they want to stay and get that degree. And then the second part of it is we haven't had that issue at places I've been. I think we treat our guys really well. We make it a fun environment, and they want to stay. So I think those two things, we won't have much turnover in the probably in a couple of years and forward, and then just continue to bring in people that are the right fit. But obviously, you're going to always try to supplement your team with the transfer portal if you get the right guys that are really excited and are falling in love with Stanford, and obviously are good enough players to play, and students that can compete in the classroom as well.
Thank you, Dave. Back to John.
Coach, by the way, I'm your radio football commentator and a former athlete at Stanford myself, third string point guard. So I appreciate the fact that you wanted to coach up everybody on your roster, and you wanted them all back. Because during my time, there was a coaching basketball change. If you remember Dr. Tom Davis when you were in school, I'm a little older than you. My question is, my head spins with all the transfers I read about, and even within conferences around the country. And some schools have directors of not pro personnel, but sort of quasi general managers. It seems to me Stanford has a chance to. I mean, it does distinguish itself anyway, as you mentioned, with the lifetime decision and the great education that's offered. Do you feel the need to message that? Are you going forward just to kind of remind the marketplace, not the marketplace, but if you know what I'm trying to say here, just kind of, it's a very competitive for talent situation, and Stanford is different. And maybe saying Stanford is different is something you want to say, or no?
No, I think I'm proud that Stanford is different. I mean, who wants to be normal and usual? We want to be uncommon, and Stanford is the epitome of that. I've always been very restless with the status quo, and that's why I was drawn to Stanford, because they are unique and they are different. And I think that in and of itself, the reasons why they're unique makes it so attractive to people across the country. But your first point, I guess, was I think you're right on. You have to have a process and a philosophy, how to reach out and people know about who you are and what you do and what you're all about and what you're trying to accomplish. And there's a definite strategy to that we need to have to find the very best in the country, because I think once they know about what we are as a football program and more about what we are academically and what that brings them, I don't know how they don't want to come to Stanford. So I think you're absolutely right. You have to have a process and a philosophy. It has to be very disciplined, but in the same sense, you got to get out there and let them know you as a person, because you're going to be their connection to the university. So I'm really excited about that. I think there's tons of opportunity for us to get out there and reach across a very large country and find the diamonds in the rough. And sometimes they're going to be known by everybody, but that's okay too. I feel really comfortable if we're targeting the right student athletes that we can compete with absolutely anybody.
Thank you. We'll do Harold, and then we'll have time for one more.
Hi, Coach. Stanford doesn't have kind of an NIL collective to the extent that some other schools have. How much do you think that hampers you guys when it comes to recruiting? And then also, you kind of touched on this already, but Stanford's lost a decent amount of players to the portal. Do you have a number in mind how many you'd want to bring in from the portal this year?
Yeah, so Stanford does have a collective. The coaches are not involved in that, but there is an active collective for the Stanford student athletes. Now, in terms of what was your second part of your transfers? Oh yeah, the transfer portal. I mean, it's a changing, moving, living organism. So, you find out maybe that a guy is, especially in the scenario that we're in, where we're coming in and there's such change, that you're going to have some movement. And we don't necessarily have the relationships with our players that you would have after you've been to a place for 4 years. So no matter how authentic you are and how sincere you are, when there's that influx or that change, there's uncertainty, and there's going to be the possibility that the kids will leave. Now, once that becomes settled and our players know who we really are and all about, I think that will be limited. In terms of the second part of that question, bringing in players from the transfer portal, hopefully our retention will be so high that will be a limited part of what we do, but we will always be out there looking and searching for guys that are the right fit. But really, I think in this ever-changing world, more than ever, if we have a strong culture, we bring in the right student athletes, we do an incredible job of developing them, and having them stick around because they really want to be here. I think that's the real model. And then you supplement that with a few key spots coming from the transfer portal onto your team. But we're going to want to do it with guys that have been here for 4 or 5 years. And that would be, kind of our main direction.
Ben, let's wrap us up.
All right. So just want to get your thoughts on a couple of the defensive backs you signed, Aaron Morris and Jashawn Foster Ramos. Noticed Morris was kind of a late time addition. It seemed like he joined Sunday, committed. Just talk about both of those defensive backs and what you expect them to bring to your program.
Yeah, well, Aaron Morris is an interesting, kid. He kind of came to football. He was a cricket player, as for the Jamaican national cricket team, really good. And now he's a Division I, cornerback at the college level. So he's an incredibly talented guy. He was at the Exeter Academy and an incredible student athlete, and really excited for him and all the potential he brings. And then Ramos is obviously a kid that played for another state championship team, and a long corner, really good ball skills. He's got great speed, great competitiveness. Those guys, and then Adam Rourke from Highland Park in Dallas, Texas, is another guy that's a really good player. So those guys are special players, and we're gonna need those guys on the back end to be able to cover people. But they're all talented.
Thank you so much, Coach. Thank you all for attending, and we will upload the audio and video files shortly after they are done processing. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.